So in this video about the final chapter of the text that we've been going over, I wanted to overview a few points that are made that attempt to sum up some of the details and the theories that we've been exploring over the last semester. And specifically, what are some of the parameters for an acceptable, satisfying moral theory, right? What does it mean to cultivate a moral attitude or adopt moral principles that are optimal, that are consistent, right? So off the bat, he points out two kind of features of what a satisfying moral theory will look like, or at least how it methodologically will unfold. And really, the two major things that he focuses on are, first of all, um, thinking without hubris, right? So in other words, as he says, hubris meaning kind of pride. It's an ancient Greek word that has to do with, haughtiness and feeling or thinking too much of yourself, right? So morality without hubris has a lot to do with recognizing that as human beings, we are not necessarily at the pinnacle of creation. We're not necessarily at the top of the universe. We live within a community, an environmental community, and a community of fauna and flora that are alive and that are interdependent on one another, and we are dependent on them. So just kind of recognizing that. And I know that in his description, he does kind of get a little bit sort of secular in a sense. um, he seems to be picturing humanity as if humanity is without any kind of spiritual guide or so forth. Right? He seems to paint that picture. You do not, of course, have to adopt that same view. However, I do think that the core stress of what he's pointing out, the idea that we should participate in moral thinking in a humble way, a way that does not think too much of ourselves or nor our abilities nor our place in the universe, is very, very important for developing a satisfactory moral theory. And the other feature of developing a satisfactory moral theory is a little bit like it. It's reason, so rationality. In other words, we don't want to contradict ourselves. Of course, this harkens back to something that we had talked about very early on in the semester. We don't want to be inconsistent in our moral theories. I can't come up with some kind of way of being that applies to only myself and not to everybody else, and or vice versa, that applies to everybody else but not to me. I have to recognize that I must not I must do my very best not to contradict myself, right? Or to use any sort of special pleading, or to commit rampant fallacies, right, where I make mistakes in my judgment and so forth. So there's that, and also it's very important to recognize as a part of a community that we need to listen to other people and respect other people and so forth, right? So these are the kinds of things broadly that we've been stressing here and there throughout the semester. A couple of things that he also points out. One of them is, let's see, I want to make sure that I is right. Yeah, think about what we deserve. He's working certainly towards a general understanding of what it means to cultivate a just society, to live in a balanced and fair and and equitable community of human beings. Right? What does that look like? And he builds towards somebody who I regret we haven't talked a whole lot about this semester, named John Rawls. And so towards the end of the video, I want to make sure that I describe a little bit of his approach to justice. But in the meantime, talk a little bit about what the author discusses as multiple strategies utilitarianism, right? Is the idea. So if you can think about it on how you might have noticed that a lot of the moral theories we've been exploring have a lot of merits to them, right? There are merits to even to ethical egoism. There are merits to social justice theories and so forth. But there are also drawbacks and sometimes uh, very difficult, very kind of insurmountable critiques to each one of the moral theories we've looked at. So I think a lot of us can recognize that it's very, very, very difficult to be a purist when it comes to any moral theory, right? It's very difficult to just sort of say I am a Kantian and that's that, right? So and without compromise. And so the idea of kind of adopting a, a generally utilitarian approach, but with the recognition that we may we may adopt many moral principles from different theories, but with the overarching motivation to cultivate a just society that works for everybody, that maximizes human well-being. So clearly the author in this final chapter is adopting a utilitarian position, but he's trying to make it a very flexible utilitarian position, a utilitarian position that says, um, ordinarily, one of the things we've said in the past about utilitarianism is that it's largely consequence-based, that motives don't really matter so much. It's only the outcome that matters for utilitarians because it's a consequence-based moral theory. It's all about the effects. But here, with this idea of like multiple strategies utilitarianism, well, there is the idea that we can include motivation, we can include duty in our utilitarian thinking because certain motives actually do end up maximizing the good, right? So they adopt kind of provisionally these different kinds of approaches to morality only in as much as they maximize the good. You might recall somebody we talked about earlier, John Stuart Mill, who said that in order to maximize utility, right, in order to maximize happiness, we should maximize liberty. We should give people as much freedom as possible. And that actually starts to sound a little bit like Kant in a sense, right? So that everybody should have autonomy, right? We should respect everybody's individual decision-making ability. We should respect everybody as rational moral agents, right? So Mill's utilitarian solution, actually does kind of bring in some amount of duty-based thinking in some respect. So utilitarianism can be quite flexible. Mill showed us that, and so forth. And and also somebody else is now I should add a caveat here. I myself am not necessarily a utilitarian. I don't think that I quite agree with the author here, and you are welcome also to disagree or agree with the author on multiple strategies utilitarianism. Um, so he argues that any sort of moral principle we can happily adopt as long as the adoption of that moral principle maximizes the good, promotes human flourishing, right? um, Encourages justice and well-being in society, right? Promotes the general welfare, to use a phrase from the Constitution, the preamble of the Constitution. All right, so finally, he brings in too briefly, right? So John Rawls really deserves much more thought and attention, I think, that he was given in this text. But granted, John Rawls is a little bit more of a political philosopher, and he's more interested in broad theories of justice than he is in moral thinking or in individual morality. Sorry, my phone's like blowing up for some reason. Um, the So here's what John Rawls points out. He notices that, and of course this is not anything new, but the way he packages it and frames it, and what he does with it in his theory of justice is quite innovative. So he takes this idea that really all of us, when we were born, we were effectively playing the lottery, right? None of us chose the conditions of our birth. So when we think about the idea of justice as getting what we deserve, well, a lot that we received, a lot that we were given, many of the ways in which we were taught and trained early on in life, we did not deserve. We didn't do anything to earn it, right? It was just kind of handed to us. So those of us who had kind of great parents, right, who were healthy and responsible and who cared for us and loved us and so forth, we didn't deserve that. We lucked out, right? We won the lottery in that area. So what John Rawls wants us to recognize is that there is a lot about a just society that where people get things that they don't deserve, right? Now, of course, he does want to maintain that yes, if you do earn something, if you truly do work for something and you do earn something, of course you deserve that and you are entitled to it. However, we also need to make sure that we reach out and we consider and care for and make sure that we include in our moral framework the people who are disadvantaged, the people who did not win the lottery when they were born, and not because of anything they did to deserve that low condition on the economic ladder or in what other situation. Maybe somebody was born with a disability and so forth. They didn't deserve that. So if we are to live in a just society, we have to consider the people who are disadvantaged. So John Rawls wants us to hold those two ideas together. yes, we should get what we deserve, but at the same time, there are some people we should also try to be as fair as possible, right? We should be try to be equitable. Right? So, one of the things he asks us to do is he asks us to imagine a society. You get to kind of play God, or you get to play king for a little bit. You can create a society however you want. You make all the rules. You decide how income and how skills and talents and how resources are distributed across all the different demographics of this fantasy world that you create, right? And you have to consider that if you simply level the playing field, like like a communist might say that everybody's equal, therefore everybody has an equal income. Well, just keep in mind that now you disincentivize harder work. You disincentivize effort to earn more or to produce more. So we can't just have a level playing field. There needs to be some amount of inequality, strangely enough. There needs to be a little bit of inequality, enough that will motivate the people who do want to work more and do want to earn more, but at the same time, not disadvantage too much the people who were born at the lower end of the economic ladder. So we want to try to make it such that those who want to be prosperous, to live lavishly, and to enjoy all of the finer things in life, they should be able to work towards that. We should create an environment where they can do that. Um, but we also need to create an environment where the people who don't get to do that or who don't want to do that still have a decent living, right? Still have some kind of modest way of enjoying their lives, right? Because if they were born in a disadvantage, they did not deserve that disadvantage, right? So we need to hold those two ideas together. So yeah, John Rawls says, imagine a civilization in which you get to decide how everything is distributed, right? But with an important caveat. The caveat is you don't know into which of those positions you will be born, right? So you're kind of in what he calls the original position, where you're behind a veil of ignorance, where you really have no idea into what condition you're going to be born, but you need to arrange society and arrange the distribution of resources, of privileges, and so forth, such that you will maximize the good, but the minimum, like the bare minimum, the people who are the worse off still have a decent life, right? So you need to arrange things that way. And so, how do you do that? Go for it, right? So is basically his challenge and his encouragement, right? And he believes that thinking that way will encourage us to legislate and to execute the laws and to adjudicate in a way that makes society much more just. In fact, his famous work of 1971 is called A Theory of Justice from John Rawls. Okay, so just wanted to kind of give you that kind of overview and that sort of the sort of insight as we think a little bit more about justice and we think about a little bit more about what a satisfactory moral theory might look like. The author of the text also talks about the idea of your best plan, the plan that will optimize your own life, but also optimize the lives of others around you, right? I think that's valuable, right? I'm not so sure that there's a whole lot of meat to that, but something worth considering. Okay, so I just want to I'll end it there, and so just as a couple of pointers, on Thursday, which is coincidentally tomorrow, we are going to I will be on Zoom. I'll make sure that I flag up an announcement for tomorrow that will tell you where the Zoom meeting is or how to get into it. I don't know if it's like a one-click kind of thing. I think the invitations are. So we'll do a Zoom meeting from 9:30 all the way to 10:45 as we normally would have class. And what we're going to do is I will do a comprehensive review for the final exam. I'm also going to post a study guide for that final exam on Canvas at that time. I am going to fashion the final exam so that uh, with heavily in mind the reality that we've had to kind of reinvent the wheel in some respects, going from a fully face-to-face course to an online course. And I think I've had various levels of success at managing that and uh, setting that up in a way um, that would enable you to continue to learn and interact and so forth, right? Thank you for your patience as I've been trying to kind of make that happen. Again, with varying degrees of success. So yeah, so the review for the final exam at 9:30. Study guide will come onto Canvas sometime between now and then, and we will review all the things that I will expect you to be familiar with ahead of the final exam. Of course, the final exam will be on Canvas, all right? And which actually is a very, very helpful platform for quizzes and tests and those kinds of things. Also, let me remind you also about the final paper. You see the rubric. I've linked to the rubric. It should not be terribly difficult, but please let me know if you are stuck in at any point, and I'll be very happy to help you find either primary sources or secondary sources. If you're stuck, try to do it on your own first, but I realize that it's not always very easy, depending on the case that you're choosing, to locate these sources. All right. I think that's it. All right. I have very much enjoyed this class, and I will hope to see you live at the review. But if I don't, then very all the best on the final, and I hope that your studying goes really well, and I hope that all the rest of your classes are going well. Hope that you are safe and healthy, and we see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So we're going to roll things out, slowly but surely. Um, and if we do need to, some people are expressing caution, right? So as people are kind of coming out in the open more, there's the risk of another wave. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but of course let's be careful within reason. I'm really looking forward to the economy opening up again and to everything coming to life again, right? All right. Uh, Again, with caution. All right. Take care, everybody, and I will hopefully see you virtually soon.